Hello again. I finally have it figured out, and this is not how the final products are going to look. These two are still mostly like beta prototype phase, and I have changed my mind on how I'm going to mount everything on here. The fat can is pretty much ready to go. This is exactly how I'm going to build it and ship it. I tried painting the front USB, and while it does look cool and it, just matches the case itself, I don't like doing it that way because now you cannot tell which of these ports is which. And a lot of the USB headers that are like this do not come with a color-coded jack. So they're both silver, and so you won't really be able to tell which is headphone and which is mic. Obviously, when you plug it in, it'll tell you, but, it's kind of annoying. So I won't be painting the front USB things. I'll show you the one that's going in the smaller ammo can. It's kind of beat up right now because I've been jamming it inside the case so often. But as you can see, it's black. It's got blue highlights. That's how it's gonna kind of look if you buy it from me and I ship it to you. Of course, with a swappable 3.5-inch drive, with a swappable, 3.5-inch drive bay, you can put in whatever you want. It doesn't have to be USB and audio. It can be USB and card readers. There are all sorts of expansions you can choose. So in the small, what I'm calling pecan, that is not interchangeable. It does not have a 3.5-inch width to play with. So it's just going to come with the standard, where is it? Just a standard USB 2 header with audio, and that's it. Nothing fancy. Unfortunately, this is really the only thing that fits in that width. And I don't want to mount anything vertically or on the side or on the back or anything. I want it on the front, and that's how it's going to be. So until they start making USB 3 headers like that, then that's all you're getting. I still have not figured out what I'm going to do with the button. I've cut a 1.25-inch hole that matches the latch hole through, all the way through. So I might just weld or solder a copper pipe that is 1.25 inches in there, and then figure out some sort of button mechanism that doesn't quite work like these ones where the button comes with the latch kind of integrated. It will just be an open hole on the latch, and the button will just stay here. So when you open it, you can still just press the button and it will turn on. But I still have to find materials for that, and it's going to be a while. As for what I mentioned earlier, how I'm going to mount everything, I've played around with some layouts and all my desk space is taken up by hardware. I've played around with some templates, and originally I was only planning on using thin mini ITX form, or thin mini ITX width IO plates, which would have severely limited the number of boards you could put in here. The only reason I chose that was because there's no way to fit a power supply in here. And so if I basically came to the conclusion that if you can fit a mini ITX board in here, and if you can get the power, the standard 24-pin and 4-pin ATX connectors, and you can route those to the back or something where you can then connect a DC to AC power converter, then I don't see why you couldn't fit a full width mini ITX slot in here. So that's what I've done. As for this expansion slot, I didn't, well, obviously there's not a lot of room left anyway, but this is just a single slot hole. So you won't be able to fit anything other than a single slot GPU or whatever other expansion card you want. It can be an M2 thing. But the problem is all that combined makes for a very strange system. If you choose to have a thin mini ITX board in here with the DC power, which is what I have, a lot of those boards do not come with a PCI Express slot, like a lot of mini ITX boards have. So without a PCI Express slot, you really can't use the expansion slot. There are a couple boards out there that have a 4 times PCI Express lane or an expansion slot, but they're horribly expensive and they're only 4 times. So you can adapt a normal 16x graphics card to a 4x expansion slot, but you know, whether it impacts performance or not, I don't know. And also, I'm not sure about the power delivery. Again, if you go with those small, thin mini ITX boards with a 4x PCIe slot, you won't be able to get power to a graphics card, so you're basically limited to graphics cards that are powered only by the PCIe. So all these things kind of just add up to a very janky system, but I don't really see how you could do it any other way. I'm gonna, as much as I don't want to, because I already have a thin mini ITX board, I might order the horribly expensive Asus Q87 motherboard that has the PCIe 4 times expansion slot, so that I can, you know, experiment with graphics cards and whatnot and see if it'll actually work. I've got a very thin cooler, so hopefully I will be able to fit all of that in here. If not, I might try to use that Quadro. But the problem with that one is that it's super long, and this case is not super long, so it'll extend into this fan hole, and then I won't be able to use a fan. So you can really see how a small case, this is a sub 4 liter case. I think it's 3.99 liters. You can see how all these problems just kind of accumulate, and unless you have very specific hardware to overcome those limitations, really the only thing you can do with this is put an 80mm fan in there and a mini ITX board and just forget the expansion slot entirely. So that's the P can. As for the regular sized ammo can, I've figured out that mounting it on this side, you know, the standard orientation of motherboards, just does not allow enough room. You can see at the bottom here, I've cut a hole, and the way that motherboards mount is, at least for the mini ITX boards, it's not, these backplates are not perfectly in line with the board. So when you go to put this on and then you put the motherboard on, this plate sticks up above the top of the motherboard by a good 1/2 inch, and then the bottom of it, of course, sticks, or you know, the board itself sticks a 1/2 inch below the bottom of this plate. So that's why I've needed to cut holes in these. So I've decided, instead of trying to mount the motherboard on this side, I'm going to flip it around on the back side, mount it basically right to the bottom of the case. So, of course, the retention tab will sit right at the bottom. And this gives you enough space to not have to cut a hole in the bottom, first of all, and that's a huge thing because I am, with a hole in the bottom, I can't mount a one of my legs there, these custom legs. It requires a hole that is located basically, a half an inch to or 3/8 of an inch in from the edge of the case. And with this setup, I just cut that out. So if I flip it over to this side and mount it here, I can still drill my hole, mount the foot, and have no interference. These screws are basically flush with the interior, so it won't hit anything. And the board can be mounted upside down. The excess board that goes below or above the plate will stick up here, and there is actually extra room on the lid, so even if there's a little bit of extra plastic on the motherboard, it will stick up into the recess of the lid and not cause any interference. So my main concern was that if you close the lid might come down on the motherboard too far and start pushing on it, which is not good. But that's not an issue. I spaced it out and it works just perfectly. So moving forward, I'm going to make the next one of these. This is still a prototype, remember. I'm going to cut the next one of these with the motherboard mount on the right side, upside down. And I'm going to cut the GPU plate. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to rearrange the GPU and power supply to accommodate that upside down orientation, because of course with an upside down motherboard, the PCI Express expansion slot comes from the top and down. So with a short riser cable like that one, it would basically put the graphics card right at the top where this hinge is going down. I'm not a huge fan of that idea, so I might have to play around with some more orientations and see what I can come up with. I do like this support thing. It's basically just a piece of metal that slides in through the bottom, and it holds the back tabs or the bottom tabs of the PCIe expansion card and holds it in place. And then at the top, there's another plate that clamps down on the little bent over part. I can show you this. So this plate kind of clamps the smaller bit right here. Sorry, this is hard with one hand. So it clamps on that, and then a screw goes in the top, a thumb screw goes in the top and clamps down on this bent part. So obviously if the GPU slot were flipped upside down, this would be up here and there would be no way to have this slotted in. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure out something. So there you have it. My thought process. I tend to ramble on these videos, so hopefully you don't find it too boring. I'm gonna try again with one of these and see if it works better. I'm pretty happy about the fat ammo can, so that one's pretty much ready to go. I'm gonna try one more time with the regular ammo can, and then once again with the pecan. So that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.